Hello, my friends. Just want to share something that I'm still not quite certain if you live in America or even if you live in any of the Western nations, anywhere in Europe, Canada, it doesn't matter. It's all the same things going on. But especially and specifically in America, if people are still deceived to the point that they cannot see what I will explain in just a few minutes, that time of deception, I think, is about over. I think the Lord is revealing this to all people, and it happens all at His choosing and His time, and He gets all the cards out on the table first before He will explain them. That's exactly what He does with a parable. You take a parable, He says the parable, and then He goes back and explains the parable. He doesn't interject in the middle of that parable to explain it. He says the whole thing, and then He explains it. And what He is doing by all of these hidden things, He's bringing them all out into the open, so that eventually when the time of revelation comes, everybody has already seen it. There is nothing left that is hidden. We see these riots happening in Wisconsin, and now the Wisconsin mayor declares a state of emergency and the National Guard presence, just like Portland, just like California, just like all of the other cities, Philadelphia, New York City, all these, they're all going through the same things right now. It's all a bunch of people who are deceived, wicked, and violent, who Satan is in control of. And he's in control of them because their leaders, the government House of Representatives and the senators and the celebrities and the spokesmen for all of these same things, the Democrats, all of them, the same thing. They get their power and pass it down to the foot soldiers on the streets. And the whole time, quite honestly, most of the people on the streets actually believe them. In their heart, they actually believe it's true, what they're being told, what they're being fed, even though none of it is. You see, what I'm getting at here is the whole picture for these riots and these peaceful protests, in quotation. None of it's peaceful. Everybody can see this. God's bringing that all out so people understand none of it is peaceful. He's bringing it all out. But the whole premise behind all of this, they want you to believe it's about equality. Okay, it's about equality, it's about dignity, it's about rights for everyone, it's about all these good things. And that's exactly what Satan does. He tells you something good, a sweet little lie to your ear, and then you run with it because you don't have the truth as your foundation. So one lie after the next, after the next, after the next, and you get full off of the lies rather than be able to stop and see what's actually happened. This movement has nothing at all to do about race, has nothing at all to do about the evilness of white people. It has nothing to do at all about the destruction of our democracy, as they say. It has nothing to do with any of that. This is an insurrection. This is an attempt to overthrow the United States government by deceit, which we know according to Daniel and according to Revelation, we know that's how the end comes. It looks deceitful. It doesn't try to come and attack you, at least not at first. It looks like a sheep and wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, I'm sorry. It looks like that. It looks like a being of light, just like Satan. It looks like the cause is good. Well, it's just about racism and institutional racism and all these things that the white people built without the intentions of ever thinking about anybody else. That's what we're doing. We're trying to push for equality in that. No, you've been a good little foot soldier for the liars above you because you believe them and you've ran with it. You say, well, this looks good. You didn't question it because you have no foundation and you just run with it. And that's what is happening to those foot soldiers out on the streets. The reality is the insurrection. They're trying to overthrow the government, but not by force, not by power, not yet. They're trying to first do it by deception. So if they can get enough people to believe these things that they're talking about, if they can get enough of them, it doesn't take 50%. Nazi Germany proved this. It takes about 30% to believe that truly, and then go out there on the streets and prove it. It takes only about 30% of the people to overthrow a government and turn it into a complete dictatorship. About 30%, and that's pretty well close to what they have right now in all actuality. They premise it as it's something good. deceive people to believe it, reward them for believing it, such as make all these promises to these people like free health care, and we're going to pay for your tuition, and we're going to give you a stipend check every month just for living. They give all these empty promises, but people, because they want peace, they want safety, they don't know Jesus Christ, they don't know where to find it, so they're going to look at the first person who offers it and run with it. That is happening. Within all these inner cities, within all these riots and all of these things that are happening, it looks like it's something good, but the reality is, do you think the country and the world would be a better place if what has stood for the last 245 years comes crumbling down? In a revolution, I don't care what revolution it is. Anytime there is a revolution, there is decline. The decline happens immediately after a revolution. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure this out. When you have something set a particular way and a revolution comes into it, it tears down everything that was and has to rebuild from scratch. So instead of just replacing a window on a house, you now have to replace the whole house. No matter what, when there's a revolution, there is an immediate decline. And the people in the suburbs, for instance, the people out in the wilderness, they're beginning to understand this. They're going to say, hey, wait, if we really go through all this and believe all this, our lives are going to change. Our families' lives are going to change, because we're going to lose some things to all this. And that's where God is beginning to show the truth to these ones, because they're now beginning to understand what really would take place if they allow this revolution to continue. They would go from living cushy lives to all of a sudden be out on the streets fighting with guns. Do you think most people want to do that with families and jobs and money? Of course not. And people are beginning to catch on to this. The leaders are the ones who have pushed for this revolution, and the foot soldiers have been the ones who have participated in bringing it about. They are attempting to overthrow the government. They are attempting to overthrow Trump from office, or keep him from being elected back into office, because he is the last restrainer of government. There is no more. There is no one else that will make the stand. He is the only one who will do it. And they know that. That's why they're pushing as they are to get him out of there or prevent him from coming back. But things began to go wrong, didn't it? People were beginning to see through this. They're beginning to see, well, this really is violent. These people are crazy. I don't want everything new. I don't want to build a new house. I just want to put a new window or two in. People are beginning to see this. So then what's their answer to this? Their answer to this is violence, because of fear that violence brings. If you can paralyze somebody by fear, you can walk all over them and overtake what they had. So that is why these peaceful protests, as they once said, are now completely turning violent. Just look through here at some of the headlines. Rioters attack man defending charitable association. I saw the video of it. The man was trying to prevent this business from being destroyed, this small business ravaged by looters, and announces permanent closing, all these things. These people who are being attacked out there, they're just trying to defend their property. They're not violently even defending their property, even though they probably should be. They're not. They're just telling people to back away, blowing a fire extinguisher, trying to get people away. And these people are getting clocked and knocked out. The violence is hitting them, and then it's beginning to go out from there into the suburbs. And people will react one of two different ways. One, they will be afraid and let people overtake them. But that's not the spirit of America. It's really not. In Europe, that's what they did. It's not the spirit of America. People, this is the last nation that has held on to that same spirit of freedom. Europe was easy to conquer. It's already done. Europe is already long gone. But America's different, because you have everybody sitting still with all their guns in their homes and their cushy lives that they don't want to go away. These people are hypocrites. They will proclaim racism everywhere, institutional white privilege, and they'll say Biden is the better choice, and we're going to go to vote, and they'll put on a Biden t-shirt and go into the election. But then once they get in there, they're going to think about all this, and they're going to press that button for Trump, because in their minds, they know what's going to happen if the revolution is if it's actually going to come into play. They already know that. So they will vote for Trump. That will be the silent majority that nobody even sees coming. But the Democrats, I do believe, see this coming. That's why they're using fear, and they're trying to steal it by vote-in ballots or mail-in ballots and all these other things that they're attempting to do to overtake the election. But it is not about racism. It is not about the institutionalized white isms, whatever you want to say. It is about an attempt by the Democrats to overthrow a constitutional republic, which is what America is. It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional representative republic. It's not a democracy, but they're trying to make people believe it's a democracy, because whenever they overthrow this republic, they will call their new form of government a democracy. So it's going to be like nothing changed, but in reality, everything changes. As a democracy in its most purest form is worse than communism. That's what people would have to look forward to if this revolution were to be able to continue. The biggest reason why they are attacking people of white color is because we are the majority of the country. If you can get them to back down, if you can take them out, then the rest of the country is going to fall like dominoes. There's no problem other than that. But how do you take out 60% of the nation? And not only 60% of the nation, 50% of them that are armed. How do you get rid of all them? That is why they are making white people appear to be inhuman. They learn all their lessons from Germany, truly. What did Hitler do with the Jews? He set such a propaganda facade out there, from little children all the way up through, and taught them that Jews were evil, taught them that they were the Aryan race, not Jews. Jews are below them. They're subhuman. So that when it came time for that Aryan race to pull the trigger on a Jew, they didn't think twice about it, because they're not even looking at that Jew as though it's a person. They're looking at it as it's some kind of an inanimate object lesser than a human being. So why are they attacking white people? So whenever the time would come that those people who were once good would have to pull a trigger and not think about it, they're going to look at white people and say, well, they're not even a human being, and pull the trigger and won't think nothing about it after that. That's why they're pushing all of this white institutionalized racism, all this other garbage, because they are trying to dehumanize white people, because they are the majority of the population. They are what stands between their utopia, socialist, authoritarian system that they'll call a democracy, and they're what stands between them from receiving that. So once they've got all the white people dehumanized, everything else will fall. It'll fall like dominoes. But we know in the end, there is one who will stand up for those of righteousness. It's spoken of in Daniel. There will be one who will stand up amongst the people. And it's already beginning to happen now, where you can see God preparing people to stand up, because his coming is imminent. His return is right around the corner. I don't know if anybody listening to me would ever think anything different than that. We all know it. The church knows it. Even the wicked church believes it. They just don't believe it in their hearts. But everyone sees that Christ is returning if you believe in that name at all. And even those who don't believe in their name look at the world and say, wow, everything is changing, isn't it? So you can see that his return is imminent. How long and how far this actually gets into it before the rescue, I'm not even certain. I don't think about these things whenever I'm thinking about myself. I think about these things for the people who are unsure of who they are, who are still walking and they can't find truth anywhere, and they find a piece of it here, a piece of it there, but they can't put it together. People who God has not yet showed them who they are, because in most cases they will not want to listen to it yet. Those ones will be the ones who will go through these things. They will see this happen over the earth. They will see the dominoes fall, because they will enter into the great tribulations. But it's going to be white people, it's going to be Christians. They're going to be the first ones to go in the great tribulations, and the Jews are going to be right behind them. That's who Satan has made the world hate since the beginning. And it's not going to change now. It's only going to get much worse as the tribulations come, and the people who are still here without the protection of God, they will go through it. But God also is merciful towards those ones, as he is building those ones up now who will even go through it. He is even preparing them for what will happen. And I can tell you this based upon not only the scripture, but just based upon common sense and reality. The Democrats are attempting to overthrow the government. They're doing it by the means of promoting a good cause, such as inequality, such as it's a white institutionalized thing. If we just got rid of that, then everybody could be equal, even though all that does is create inequality. But it looks good from the outside. Everybody wants equality. Children of God want equality. We don't want to be better than anybody else, and we know we're not any better than anybody else. We know we're equal in each other's eyes. But that's not the same for these wicked ones who their father is Satan. They don't care about equality, they care about power. So they're trying to overthrow us. They're going to call the new government a democracy. It's eventually going to be called a worldwide democracy. And that's in the Great Tribulation. So when you see these things happen, God forbid anybody that is listening to me gets to this point, but if you do, or even if this is still able to be accessed out somewhere else out there and people can listen to it when the time comes, understand what is happening, because this is what has happened. They dehumanize the white people, the Christians, the Jews, they dehumanize all of them, so that they're easily led to the slaughter when the time comes. But the time cannot come until that white population in America falls. But when that white population in America falls, that's the return of Christ. That's the beginning of the tribulations. Because what brought about Christianity to Western civilization was all built upon Christianity. Its end comes the same way it began. Its end comes by a few, from a few, just like the beginning came by a few, from a few. There will be very few white Christians left in the world by the time that government is overthrown. Whether it will be because they are on the ark with Jesus Christ, whether it be because God Himself rains down hellfire upon them, whether it be because they go with the crowd who hates them and joins them and turns coat just like Judas. There will be very few at the beginning of the tribulations of this percentage of white American people. Satan has to get rid of them first before he can overtake the country. So right now, if you look at everything that's happening with the election, it's all a coup. They're trying to overthrow the election. They're already telling you that. They're making all statements like Donald Trump, what if he doesn't leave office? Or mail-in ballot harvesting is absolutely fine. We have no problem with people mailing in votes. There's no proof that it can be changed or altered. No proof. They're setting the stage for, even if he wins the election, to say that he's illegitimate. And that's what they're going to push for. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Donald Trump between now and the election even. And a lot of things can happen to him even right now. But I do know for certain if it gets to that point and everything is still the same as it is roughly right now, 72 days from now, they will not concede the election. They will say that Donald Trump has tried to take over and stole it. And they're preparing people for this right now. But as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people are beginning to understand all of this coup is happening, and they're beginning to think about it. They're not going to lose that thought pattern come the election. They're going to just think in the back of their minds, well, I don't think this is right. I don't think this actually so. I think Donald Trump was actually elected, and there's going to be a big bloodbath whenever that time comes, because that will be the beginning of the live round civil war. It's already happening right now. It's happening in the streets. It's happening in the minds of the people. There's already a soft civil war, just like there was a Cold War between Russia and America. It's already there. Only this time, unlike the Cold War, somebody will fire the first bullet. And whether it happens on election night, or whether it happens tonight, or whether it happens after election night, whenever Trump is going to get sworn into office the second time, who knows when it's going to happen exactly, but when it happens, all of these people who will sit right now and say, well, there's no way a civil war is ever going to happen. You're crazy. You better take your meds, and all these kind of things that they put people down for thinking. Those are the first people that will be killed whenever all of it breaks out, because they're completely unprepared mentally for it. completely unprepared spiritually for it. They have no homes, no guidance. Those are the very first ones whose blood will be spilled. The ones who think that they know it all and that nothing's going to happen. The world is exactly the same as it was yesterday, the same as it was 20 years from now. We just have different things going on. Those ones are willfully blind. And the Lord puts the willfully blind to sleep first. Just remember this for anybody that you may know in your own life who is like this, who you can tell them anything and they just simply will not listen to you. Even whenever it happens, they're not going to listen to anybody. They're still going to be in such a state of shock that they can't comprehend it. And that's why they're like fattening for the slaughter, as they will run right out into the slaughter the whole time believing it's never even there. The very same thing that happens in the story that I tell with the fish or the frog in the cold water. They're like the frog who doesn't understand the water's been turned to a boil. They will just sit there and cook in it. They're going to be the first ones to go out. But so much is happening in the country so quickly. Just if you take anything away from what I say in this video, take away that this has got nothing to do with racism. It's got nothing to do with institutions. It has everything to do with insurrection. They are trying to overthrow the government. God bless.